The purpose of this talk is really to introduce to you the concept of 3D, 3C markets, and actually talk a little bit about the challenges of getting there. I think many of the people here are well aware of the potential of virtual worlds. I want to sort of delve a little bit into that potential by talking about 3D and 3C worlds, and then talk a little bit about the challenges. So here's the conclusion of my talk, just to make sure that you at least get to know what I wanted to say. The conclusion is that 3D, 3C worlds will change, will enhance, but at times hamper how we learn, enjoy, work, and perform other human actions. So this talks about the potential. It also is, it's not a binary thing. The more we have of 3D and 3C, the more we will be able to attain the potential. And last but not least is that one of the key features that will enable this potential is standards, which is the focus of our work in Metaverse 1, was the focus of our work. And one particular example is the MPEG-V, which John is going to talk about in length a little bit later. So these are the points. The potential, it's a journey. It's not a binary thing. We need to get there. And standards are key to that factor. I want to start by talking about a perspective on technology. You know, 1980s we had personal computers. In the 90s the internet emerged. 2000, around 2000, we saw the initial steps of social web. Today everybody's crazy about their iPhones and iPads and stuff like that. I claim that sometimes into the future, and notice that I have a few options here, sometimes into the future we will have what I call 3D, 3C markets. It's a shift, it's a change, and we need to prepare ourselves for that change. And the work that you guys are doing is exactly the core technologies and the core concept that will enable that. So what is 3D, 3C markets? Here in Israel, you have a wonderful opportunity. We will see that actually, I think, on Friday. This is a market. And this market really demonstrates the whole thing in one picture. First of all, we have what we call in the industry level of details, LOD. You can see everything very close here. You can see the people, you can see our hair, you can see everything, you can see the actual products. But you can also see further. That is the value of 3D. 3D automatically creates a very efficient representation of knowledge in the world. So that's 3D. We also see here something which is very interesting. We see the intricate relationship between the potential customer here and the salesperson here. Just looking at each other, they are communicating the fact that, hey, I have a lot of things to sell and maybe you should buy, and yes, I will give you a discount. And this guy is basically telling him, I don't want to buy anything. I don't want to even hear what you have to say, and if I have to pay for it, I will pay half. And this is all was created in a matter of seconds, and maybe that look is going to create a business, maybe not. This guy is generating 100 looks exactly like that. This guy is engaged also in the same things, and that's how markets behave. At the same time, we see products, various products that are the creation, the end of a value chain that perhaps have started somewhere in Hong Kong because that's where they manufacture the little, I don't know, plastic things that surround that, and maybe in another city. The products are the creation of people, and the market is the place where people can actually purchase them. And last but not least, I don't know if you can actually notice that, but it says here in Hebrew, cash machine. It's money. All this will never happen. People will not come to the market. The sales people will not bother exhibiting their merchandise if there was not a common standard that enabled them to exchange value in the form of money. Commerce is a critical part of this idea. When you connect all of this, you get what we have, which is the physical market. What do we claim? What we claim is that there is a new market that is emerging. It is the market of 3D and 3C. And the numbers are staggering. The numbers are big. First of all, this is a list of many of the virtual worlds out there divided by range of ages. And you can see the number of people that are registered to this world. And what is registered? Express some kind of an interest. It is, according to the latest count, over 1 billion people that have some connection to some virtual world. So many people are already in that area starting to engage in this discussion. Younger, more, 5 to 10. This age, 10 to 15, is the biggest chunk. And us guys are still, we have a lot to catch, only 34 million. Let's go into some details into these 4 factors to understand their meaning. Look at the site, let's say, Tokyo.com or Japan.com. This is a website, a standard website. Text, some pictures, etc. In contrast, look at the 3D environment that represents exactly the same thing. It is a different representation. This one includes in it other people. This one includes here the feel of the place. Now, I'm not sure from information efficiency point of view which is more efficient. But obviously, this is more inviting. It's more common. This is how we are used to process data. There are some pros and cons to the 3-dimensional representation. It's obviously not as efficient, but obviously it's more engaging. It's more inviting. 3D, in general, has a tremendous effect. I want to quote Stuart Brown here that basically says that 3D fire up the cerebellum, put a lot of impulses into the frontal lobe, helps contextual memory to develop and that's how I exactly describe that. It is the value of gathering information from a 3-dimensional environment. In many ways, the internet itself continue to push the old representation of 2D. We need to get into more advanced representation, which is the 3D world. Community. When you join forces together, you have a lot of things that can happen. We're talking about concepts like co-creation, wiki culture, sharing, crowdsourcing, etc. What does it all mean? What does community mean? It means all kinds of concepts that we need to embed into the world. Leadership, rights, permission, how to be a member in a group. A managed community really facilitates a lot of value. Here's an interesting example. This is a CNN broadcast of the Obama inauguration. And as I watched that, some of my friends joined in the Facebook window. So I watched the scenes, but at the same time, I was able to discuss, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? The experience is now no longer I'm just watching it. It's not unidirectional, it's multidirectional. When we talk about community, we talk about acting and performing in a community. Creation. Creation is all about moving from being passive to being active. And I think the modern culture really emphasized that. We really want to become active participant in the world and less of a passive consumer. It's the difference between lean back and lean forward. Here's a simple example. This is actually a page from Kindle. And what you see in that page is a comment that somebody did. It's a book called Building Social Businesses. And apparently, 14 other people highlighted this part of the book. So now you are not just reading the book. You have the option to read the book with your friends. And you're in the future, what I think will happen is that you will buy the book, and after you have bought the book, you will buy some kind of a annotation layer. I would like to read the book, but also see what John is thinking about this book. So I will actually pay twice. For the book, maybe $1. For John comments, John, maybe $2, right? Very important comments, right? And now we have a complete new business. This is the beauty of the connection between community and creation and commerce. Money, I don't know if you know that, is an important thing, right? Research says that the 2011, that this year market of virtual good is going to be $2 billion just in the US. These are people who are buying dresses from this guy and karate motions from this guy. $2 billion. And when you think about it, it's completely unbelievable. But on the other hand, it's very productive, you know, low carbon signature. Nothing is really get wasted. Plus, it's not so expensive at the end of the day. Facebook last year introduced the concept of credits and is striving to be the common platform with virtual money. How do we know that? Many of the application developers in Facebook got already a phone call from Facebook basically telling them, look guys, please stop using your credit cards or your PayPal agreement. Why don't you use credit balances? Many people will have credit balances. The small price is that 30% of that belongs to Facebook. So it is interesting to see that Facebook is now moving toward what we already met in virtual worlds like Second Life or IMVU, which is a virtual currency that is real. But one has to make a very, very important distinction. It is the distinction between fake virtual money and notice the connection of words, real virtual money. And what is the difference? Very simple. If you can take the money out, then it's real. If you cannot take the money out, like in Facebook, then it's not real. Then it belongs to the gaming world. To be real, you need to be able to take the money out. We're not there yet. So what is 3D and 3C? Let me summarize. Basically, we take the technologies that we have today, in, for example, World of Warcraft or the famous SimCity, a three-dimensional representation of the world. We add to that the social factors that we see in Facebook, or even the good old Windows with the permission system, which is basically a community-based system. We add to that the culture and the tools to create content. Isn't it unbelievable how many people just upload stuff to YouTube? 99.9% is complete garbage, but still they do it. Because mother needs to see the little baby who is eating the, I don't know, porridge in the morning. On the other hand, you see something like Wikipedia. It's a different kind of creation. Then add to that the business of commerce, the ability to transfer money and to easily do that. That is commerce. And that creates what I call a 3D, 3C markets. Now, the point of this slide is to emphasize that 3D and 3C is really a scale. Some worlds have more of that, and some other worlds have less of that. Some worlds have more of the 3D, the quality is better, the speed is better, caching is better, etc. Some have more money in it. You can really take the money out. It's easy to do that. It's really easy to put the money in, etc., etc. The bottom line here, according to this concept, is that the more 3D, 3C you have, the more markets you have, and therefore the more value is being created. So what is missing? I want to emphasize 5 things that I think are still missing for this vision to materialize. The first thing has to do with interfaces. This is the original 1970 patent for the mouse. 1970. The mouse, which is the interface, is at the core of modern operating systems. At the core of the smartphone, we have that type of interface. Again, before we had that, not just conceptually, but practically, we could not have what we have today in terms of the iPhone and Android markets. In virtual world, we do not have that yet. This is one of the experiments conducted, This is one of the experiments conducted within the scope of this project, where people had to inject stuff into my head, hopefully to capture the feeling, to get something out, and that serves as the interface. But we do not have that. Anybody that tried to navigate a virtual world today, no, it's very difficult. You know, it's a like your fingers really cross each other. We do not have a solution yet, so here's a big project for all of us. Number 2 is the business of money. Actually, money is very complicated. We need to deal with international tax issues. We need to deal with micropayments. That's a painful point today. One of the reasons that we do not have PayPal in that business is because they are charging almost $1 for every transaction. And you know, many of the transactions are less than $1. They are 10 cents. So how can you do that? There's also ability to deal with commissions. There are all kinds of players in the middle. The bank, the receiving bank, etc. There's a big issue of fraud. Anytime you deal with money, it's like fraud comes in. And of course, the business of money laundering. These are all complicated matters that are not yet solved globally. They are solved locally in some places, but there is no solution. And that is really a hampering factor for virtual worlds to become what they need to be. The third point is what I call identity. And again, a complicated matter that is not yet solved. We touched upon that a little bit within the scope of the project. But the whole business of permissions and rights, how do you really respect that? How do you really prevent people from copying your wonderful virtual creations? Still not solved. Another thing that we talk about is the business of anonymity and the real identity. This is a struggle, because on one hand, the whole beauty of a virtual world is that you're completely anonymous. But then if you're completely anonymous, you cannot do business with each other. We need to find some kind of a balance here. We also need to be able to track transactions. Some of the virtual world business people here will know, I bought that, yes, but what's the proof that you actually bought that? I want to return that, yes, but what are you exactly returning? These things are not yet solved. Our goal is really to create a trusted market. We do not have that yet. Fourth is the business of scalability. A couple of years ago, many companies tried to go into virtual worlds, and they were successful. What does it mean to be successful? Many people came. Many people came, the server died. That's it. End of success. As opposed to the web technology that is really extremely scalable and can deal with thousands of users on a single web page, virtual worlds today are not able to do that. Actually, I want to report an interesting research by Intel, and this is a demonstration of that. This is an example of 500 avatars, which is 10 times what we now have in virtual world. Of course, if you carefully look at them, you see that all of them look exactly the same thing. All of them wear black. Yes, Intel did that research. Yeah, Intel dress code. So, but it is possible, and we do need to solve that. On the other hand, the idea that you will have 1,000 avatars in one place is not really an interesting idea, because what are you going to do with 1,000 avatars? What are you going to do with 1,000 people in one room? So there are some challenges here that we need to solve. Last but not least is the business of, which I call here dependency or interoperability. The major problem that we have today in virtual world is that we do lack a standard that would allow different players in this industry to work together. If you take the internet as an example, you have HTML, and then you have the Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, all use the same HTML. Granted, they're somewhat different. This is a little speedier, this one a little nicer, this is easier, this works also here, this works there, but still you have one language. We do not have that in virtual world. Every company thinks they're going to invent the world and come up with their own stuff. Currently, most 3D, 3C markets effort follow the gaming world as building a separate and not connected world. The bottom line is that there's a lot of more work that needed to be here. But I'm very, very hopeful and very optimistic. Why I'm optimistic? Because on one hand, and in this project we have seen it, there is a constant supply of interesting technologies that are actually solving these problems one by one. Today, GPUs are not the ones that we had 2 years ago. They are much faster and much cheaper. So we have a constant stream of good technology that are supposed to solve these problems. I'm also positive in terms of the demand, because both younger generation and older generation are really looking at new ways to express themselves. And of course, I do see the older generation as the biggest population in this market, not necessarily the younger one. And last but not least, once we introduce commerce into the picture, and it will start to work, we will have a constant cycle of innovation. Because once people start to actually make money out of that, they will generate bigger need, which will be answered by supply and will give the products to the people who are demanding it. So I think it's going to be, once we cross that threshold and we have that, I'm very positive. And with that, I would like to thank you very much.